Hearing will come to order. I want to welcome everyone to the Senate Budget Committee today. Today we'll continue our series of hearings on the President's budget. Before the recess, we heard from OMB Director Jack Lew and Treasury Secretary Tim Geithner. Today our witness is Secretary of Education Arne Duncan. Tomorrow we'll hear from Energy Secretary Chu. And on Thursday our witness will be the Transportation Secretary Ray LaHood. Next week, we will also be holding a hearing on Defense and State Department budgets. We want to alert members that both of those departments have asked to testify together. I'm very pleased to welcome Secretary Duncan to the Budget Committee today. This is the Secretary's first appearance before the committee, and we look forward to his testimony. I personally believe that education is the key to our country's economic future. The importance of education is something that was ingrained in me at a very young age. I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother was a school teacher, Mr. Secretary. She was 5 feet tall, and we called her Little Chief because she commanded respect. And in our household, I will never forget, she said, in this household there are 3 priorities. Number 1 is education. Number 2 is education. Number 3 is education. And we got the message. And she was right. So even as we look to cut spending to bring down the deficit, which we must do, we also need to ensure that we get our priorities right. And education needs to be a priority as we proceed with reducing government expenditure. We need to be careful not to cut education in a way that would come back to hurt the nation's long-term economic growth and security. We simply must maintain a strong education system if we want to keep pace with our global competitors. Let me just go through quickly a couple of charts that I think raise concern. First of all, we are now falling behind competitors in key areas. American students no longer are at the top of their class. We rank 25th out of 34 Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries in math, well below the OECD average. We rank 17th out of 34 OECD countries in science. Our global competitors are making education a priority. The contrast with China is striking. In the mid-'80s, we produced nearly as many engineers in graduate schools as China. But now China is producing far more engineers than we do, as this chart depicts. The education achievement gap that has opened between the United States and its global competition is already hurting our economic strength. Here are the findings of a study done by the consulting firm McKinsey & Company, in which they quantified the economic impact of the education gap. They wrote in part, "The persistence of educational achievement gaps imposes on the United States the economic equivalent of a permanent national recession. The recurring annual economic cost of the international achievement gap is substantially larger than the deep recession the United States is currently experiencing." Let me go to the next chart. The reality is that we have not been focusing our nation's resources as productively as possible. This chart, which was made with data from the President's budget, shows that our combined investment in infrastructure, research and development, and education has fallen as a share of GDP from 6.1% in 1962 to 3.6% in 2012. That's even while deficits and the share of debt to GDP has grown, our commitment to these areas, infrastructure, education, research and development, has shrunk. How can that be? Well, it can be because what's happening is the entitlements, the mandatory side of the budget has grown and displaced much of what has been traditionally domestic discretionary spending. So as a share of the economy, we're spending a smaller amount on education and these other critical areas than we did in the 1960s. One of the key challenges we face in education funding is the Pell program. It is important to remember that even the maximum Pell award of $5,550 offsets only a small portion of the cost of college, less than 1/3 of the annual cost of a public four-year college. And that portion has gotten smaller as the rising cost of college has outpaced the increases in the Pell award. At the same time, due to the recession and increased demand for Pell grants, as well as changes that we made as to who qualifies, the cost of the program has increased. So we're paying a smaller share of the cost, but the overall cost of the Pell program has increased. In 2008, the Pell program cost $14.2 billion. CBO now projects that without changes to the program, Pell costs in 2012 will be $37.8 billion. Here's what the Obama administration has proposed in its budget for the Pell program. It proposes to maintain the maximum Pell award at $5,550. It proposes savings within Pell by eliminating the second Pell payment, which was established to help students pay for summer school. It also proposes other savings in education accounts to help pay for Pell, including ending in-school interest deferment for graduate students, incentivizing conversion to direct lending, and modernizing the Perkins Loan Program. I look forward to hearing more from Secretary Duncan on these proposals. I want to end by emphasizing again the importance of education to our nation's economic strength. Here is a statement from Harvard economists Claudia Golden and Lawrence Katz from a paper they wrote entitled, "The Future of Inequality: The Other Reason Education Matters So Much." They wrote, "An educated population is a key source of economic growth, both directly through improved labor productivity and indirectly by spurring innovation and speeding the diffusion of advanced technologies. Broad access to education was, by and large, a major factor in the United States' economic dominance in the 20th century and in the creation of a broad middle class. Indeed, the American dream of upward mobility, both within and across generations, has been tied to access to education." I think they have it right. Education is a key to our past success and our future strength.